infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
I lived a different life, so it was like I was a street kid, like riding freight trains and hitchhiking, like street punk sort of thing. Basically, well, this starts out, we were in the Okanagan Valley. We were fruit picking. We got done, we're all cashed up and stuff. Talking to the guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's this cool trail, like you can hike it if you're willing to hike, 45 kilometers. Like there's this crazy hot spring and waterfall and stuff." So we hike. We do the trail. It's far, like it takes us 2 days to get in there, but I think back about some of the stuff we saw coming in, like tree breaks and stuff I didn't think much of. It's like, oh, hey, it's some weird broken branches and just noises we couldn't explain. But, like, the guy was like 22 at the time. I don't think we were thinking very much of it. You know what I mean? We're hiking in, and like the first night is just noises, just weird noises, screaming, and like coyotes going. Coyotes or wolves, I honestly don't know. It was the mountains, so it could be either or. Just making weird noises I've never heard. Like I grew up in the bush and stuff, and I've never heard wolves or coyotes to this day making noises like that. We get in the second day. When you come in at this big, wide, I don't know if you're familiar with the Okanagan Valley at all.
No, not at all. And please explain to people who might be listening where that is, because I was going to swing back and explain where we're talking about.
Sorry. We were in Sicamous, British Columbia at the time, which is just kind of Kelowna, Kamloops are the two major cities that would be close. And so we were picking fruit. They're not big high mountains. They're sort of rolling and very nice climate. All the fruit in Canada is pretty well grown there. It's just like peaches and apples and stuff. It's a good way for street kids to go make some couple $1,000s in a couple weeks. After we get in there, it's this big wide valley. The mountains aren't really tall on either side, but it's like a kilometer wide, I guess. So I'm talking to a lot of Americans too. Kilometers less than a mile,
right?
1.6 kilometer to a mile or something like that.
Yes. No, the conversion is good. It's good to mention that. I appreciate that.
No worries. Yeah, I lived in the U.S. for a little bit, so I do know. So it's really wide, and like we're getting in there at night, and it's like nothing really crazy has happened during the day. So like we crack a couple beers, we're having a fire, and like dark settling in. Next thing you know, like rock comes flying in, and I'm talking a big rock. I can throw pretty good, but I can't explain to this day how like rocks this size were just coming. Like they weren't coming off the mountains. The mountains were just way too far away for it possibly, and they're coming horizontally. Like first one comes in hard, and I'm like, well, that was kind of weird. Didn't think anything out of it. For hours, the rocks started coming in just sideways. Well, like man, like not like we were getting bombarded, like just pelted left, right, and center. And one every 10 or 20 minutes, like just enough to like when you're kind of like, that was weird. It happens again. And then my dog, Crispy, we were talking about there, then she starts. She's the nicest dog. You don't hear her bark or just do anything like that. She's just not that dog. But she starts growling at something in the woods. And we're like, okay, that's a little weird. But it's bear country, so whatever. But yeah, throughout that night, it's just the rocks. The rocks get coming. It's so hard to explain. I've never told this story before. I have, but like never like this. Just the rocks coming, just big rocks. Like some of them weighed like 5 or 10 pounds, like you don't throw that rock very far. And a smell, I can't describe it. Like something between BO and rotting corpse.
That's pleasant. And then you guys are probably trying to eat dinner at some point. And was that smell there the entire time?
No, but it's like when the breeze would come, you'd get whiffs of it. Yeah, we're trying to eat dinner, trying to drink some beers. We're just trying to camp. The second day, we're like not even exactly where we are. Like we're just kind of going on like, oh, there's this trail, like secondhand information. It should take you X amount of time, but so we're not even there yet. Yeah, that night was just the screaming and the rock, those noises. In the morning, I was with a buddy of mine, and I'll call him Dave. Just that seems the simplest. I don't know if he wants associated with this, so. He wakes up in the morning and like we're drinking coffee and he's like, we're leaving, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we're leaving. He just wouldn't talk about it. I swear he saw something or had something else happen that I didn't. Because like in the night, it was just rocks occasionally and like big bangs in the woods and these screams. I've lived in the woods. Like I grew up in a town of 600 people in the middle of the woods. I've heard all sorts of crazy animal noises. Nothing like this. Seen bears, like I can identify like a bear. I can't even explain it, Shannon. It's just the weirdest thing. Like tell you, like everyone's like, oh yeah, it can't happen. It can't happen. And then when it happens to you, it's just like you really, really got to stop and think. I never did see anything. Like I have no saying that it, like just what I know from just being inquisitive. It seems like I had a Sasquatch encounter.
Well, and the rocks being thrown horizontally at you is really quite significant at that size, 5 or 10 pounds.
Yeah, like some of them were smaller, like baseball size, but like some of them were pretty significant rocks. At first, I was like trying to figure a way that could be coming off the mountains, but just the physics of it it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. Just going to bring up the whole rock thing again. Is how close did some of these come to you?
One of the big ones was within 5 feet. Like, I think they were just like, they weren't thrown at our heads or anything. Like it was just to make you notice they were there. Some of them were pretty significant rock. I don't know if I'm exaggerating a bit, just enough that I know just being a super ADD kid, like I know about throwing rocks. I wouldn't dream of throwing rocks like that. Like I couldn't throw some of those rocks like that out of the woods like they were coming.
How traveled is this place that you guys were at?
We didn't see anyone like on our entire. However, you do see evidence that people are there. You see the 4-wheeler tracks. You see a litter. You know what I mean? I would suspect like we were 20 miles from a house minimum, and that's just guessing. Like could be the whole way. Like. We were in an area, when you come into Sicamous, you come out on this highway where you branch off going to Kelowna, and there's these 2 big lakes. And basically the start of the trail we came up is like the hydro cut, you know what I mean, where the power lines are coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you come in there and then you follow that for a long ass time. But eventually you come to this other trail that is well marked, and it says whatever trail up to Hot Springs. And then you vary off. Well traveled from people want to get out and have like a couple day in out hike camping excursion, but not well traveled from the point of we didn't see anyone.
But heavily forested area, obviously, of Canada.
Oh yeah,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, BC is got some rainforest in it. We weren't quite in that part yet, but yeah, heavily forested. Big trees. Even some burns, like we went through a couple burned areas. There was a lot of fires in that area, and it's just dry. It's some of the spots in the Okanagan Valley are considered a desert. There's rattlesnakes and shit.
What was the conversation during this whole rock throwing incident over the hour or whatever it was between you and Dave?
At first, the first thing I said to my buddy, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's a Bigfoot. At first just to my friend, and then like it never really came up. We just would be like, another one. But you're just sort of not wanting to freak your friend out. You're scared, but you're just, you know what? I'm just not going to scare him if he's not scared. So trying to like avoid the elephant in the room, if you get what I mean.
I mean, did you automatically get the sense that Dave was quite uncomfortable with this whole thing? So do you think you were trying harder than he was to do that and make the situation kind of more low-key?
Yeah. He's a big guy. Like, I've never seen him like that. Like, I'm not a very tall guy, but my friend Dave's 6-something, like, ridiculous. But yeah, I've never seen him like that. He's one of the bravest guys, and he just wouldn't, like, to this day, I've mentioned it a couple of times, and he's still just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just pretends like it never happened, as weird as that is. But I guess that's common. Like, people don't want to acknowledge stuff that happened to them.
Right, but that's a really good point you made earlier. Is the rock throwing and the weird noises enough alone for him to do that, to not want to talk about it, or did he in fact see something?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I couldn't get out of it. Even on the hike back, the hike back was only about a little over a day. Like, it took less time because it was downhill. But I'd bring it up, and he would just always just like pretend like he wasn't hearing me, or just totally change the subject. I've never seen that man freaked out like that. I don't know what he saw, or if he saw anything.
I mean, the rocks could have been enough. It could have been enough between the screams and the rocks. You just never know. People process things so differently, right? So, okay, so you get through that second day, and then he goes, "We're out. We're leaving." So you never actually got to basically your final destination for that hiking trip, right?
No. We never did get to our final destination. We were gonna like we were street kids, and we were flush up on cherry picking money, or not. Pardon me, not cherry. That was apples. On apple picking money. We just planned on like hanging out in the woods, drinking whiskey, and you know what I mean, doing what homeless punk rock kids do.
How old are you guys at this time?
I want to say 22. I'll be 38 this year, so.
No, something I had written down was to ask what kind of fruit, of course, and so it's interesting that it is, in fact, apples. We've heard a lot of times of these guys coming into various, even just right on somebody's property, and people come out and they're like, "Oh, I was going to pick those apples the next day," and then these apples that are, 12 foot off the ground are completely gone off of the tree. So biggies seem to like apples, which is not surprising at all. But okay, so yeah, apple picking.
We were away from the orchards, though. I would like to say, like, we were in more of a like non-farmed terrain.
Right.
Like, you get what I mean? Like, this was very like just as nature intended sort of land. Though we're not outside the realm of possibility of the orchards. I don't know where they extend to. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, totally.
We were definitely in like cedar and like pine forest.
And after a 2-day hike, and you weren't even really there yet. I mean, holy crap, that place is very far. So,
it was super far, and like, there's definitely like, I'm thinking about just some of the stuff we saw, like just big branches broken way high up, but nothing else broken on the damn tree. Like, I've seen windstorm damage and microburst and like heck, even tornado damage. I grew up in the prairies. That's not just single branches dropped like this into the trail the whole as you're going, you know what I mean? And big ones like 8-10 inches around.
And how high off the ground were these breaks?
Higher than I could reach. I'm 5'7", like 8 to 10 feet.
And what time of year was this?
This was like going into fall. So it was September. Yeah, September seems appropriate. Coming out of apple season. Yeah, September, I want to say.
All right, swinging back to the rock throwing. Sorry, I'm going to keep... things will pop into my head. I apologize. You know how I roll. How many different directions were these rocks coming from every 5 to 10 minutes?
I couldn't answer that question. I honestly, I don't... I want to say different directions, but I honestly can't answer that. I'm not sure if I ever... I didn't clue in to think about what direction they were coming from.
Well, and it's tough because it was dark at that point, right? So you just around the campfire.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first ones came in like right at twilight too. You know, like the sun is dropped behind the mountains, but it's still light enough like you can see a bit. That was probably about when the first one started. And
no sounds though during the rock throwing time frame.
No. Maybe some bangs. Like I do remember some bangs. What do they call it? what I believe would be tree knocking. Sorry, that.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Yeah. Tree knock, wood knock.
I've looked into it. When it happens to you, you become rather fascinated in the subject. So you're like, or you do what Dave did and just completely deny it happened.
There's also that option, yes, which happens quite a bit, I would say. People go, nope, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, I think part of it too is the stigma attached to it too. Is like you get lumped into the foil hat crowd.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's the worst part of the whole thing, and why most people won't even ever talk about their experience, which is a real bummer.
I was on the I'd bring it up if I thought someone was open to the idea, but yeah, I was always afraid to be ridiculed for telling it. But I'm at a point in my life where I really don't care. I know what happened, and that's all that matters. And if anything I can say could be beneficial, or at least direct some people, like, hey, like, but I mean, BC is well known for Sasquatch sightings, so it's not like it's anything, you know what I mean, out of the ordinary. And like the Aboriginal peoples of that area, like their totems have Sasquatch or, hairy man beasts, as they call them, or whatever, in their art. These native people generally weren't depicting things. Even their gods were things, or, you know what I mean, were things that they saw and represented. Earth and fire, the eagle or the raven, all real things. Like, these people didn't add made up things to their mythology, which I always find fascinating.
Yeah, they always accepted Bigfoot as just something else that was real out there. Like you said, they never did question it. Can you explain the screaming a little bit better that you guys were hearing? Were these different kinds of screams, or was it the same one that you heard several times?
Grunts and puffs, not, but like you'd hear, or like, but, and then the screams were like horror movie, like just high pitch, but just bellowing, and would like boom through the valley. Like, you hear the wolves making noise and they ain't booming. Like, it was loud, and close, very close.
And you did hear grunts and puffs, you said? Both of those also came into play at some points?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I wasn't counting that in the screaming, just as the behavior.
Right.
Sorry.
So you heard both of those, and those were close as well?
Well, you don't hear those things unless they're close.
That's true.
Have you ever... I've been around a bear a couple times, like had bear encounters, and when they're making their pissed off noises, they're not crazy loud, but you heard it, and to get the heck away from it.
Yeah, especially that puff sound. I think that would be pretty cool to hear. I mean, unless you're in the middle of nowhere like you guys were. I'm sure Dave was already like, what the hell, dude? But the puffing sound is really pretty interesting to hear, I would think.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say it's not something that it's very similar to something I've heard a bear make. I will say that, though. But who knows? Like, when associated with the other things going on, why would I think it's a bear? I didn't see any evidence of bears on that entire trip.
Right. Yeah, because I guess
usually if they're making, I was gonna say grizzlies, it's grizzly bears in that area. If they're making puffs at you, they're just rushing your camp.
Well, yeah, and you would see the bear scat everywhere, you would think. Well, not everywhere, but some sign of it, right, with the berries within it, and it's pretty easy to tell bear scat.
Oh, yeah, it's big, and it's full of, berries, and, it's weird, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the reason I brought up the whole close thing was, especially when it comes to grunts or specifically puffs, if you hear that, it's got to make you, turn and go, what the, oh my God, it has to be right there. Maybe you guys were thinking that you were going to actually see something at that point.
Yeah, I tried to, a couple times. I thought I kind of had an idea where it's you throw the mag light up, nothing, no eye shine, no nothing, coming from the wood, just nothing. Couldn't see anything. And even the next day, no footprints, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
One definitely new tree break on the way as we were coming out, really close into our where we had camped out. There was definitely a new one that wasn't there the day before, but that's it. That was the only evidence that was what we heard, and I never saw anything. I never saw footprints, nothing, like nothing other than those breaks. Yeah, tree breaks. Like I didn't see any of these what they call stick structures that they seem to go with the Bigfoots and stuff. Didn't see anything like that, just tree breaks and the noises. Mind you, I wasn't looking for that stuff. I wasn't as versed as I was at the time.
Okay, so the auditory stuff, was that then starting at twilight and then into dark, or did any of the noises happen during the day hike?
During the day hike, like I said, you'd hear some cracks in the woods and stuff, but there's elk, there's like lots of things it could be. Like you're in a spot where the animals aren't crazy accustomed to humans either, so like it could just be like you spooked something and it took off, it heard you coming, you know? But yet, like nothing auditory per se that I can directly think in other than like just hearing some snaps in the woods, but you hear that hiking all the time. Could be anything.
Right. Tons of animals out that way.
Tons of big animals too, like moose and elk.
Did you guys sleep that night of the rock throwing incidents?
I tried to, but it was pretty well anyways. One of those nights where it's like you're not sure if you're sleeping because anything like that moves or any noise, you're just right up like, what the heck was that? I don't know about Dave. Like we each had our own tent and stuff. Like I don't know what his mindset was, but yeah, it was. He didn't want me to cook breakfast in the morning either. Like he was like one of those guys always like coffee. He's like, hey, get our shit, we're gone. You know what I mean? Like he's not a morning guy. I'm usually the one like, hey, we gotta go, man. Let's go. And he was, I want gone.
He was over it, huh? That really bugged him.
yeah, 100% over it.
It is just kind of strange that he will just straight up deny it even to you, even though he knows that you were there too.
Yeah, I know. Who knows?
Poor
like,
Dave.
What he's thinking.
Poor Dave. It's not the first time we've heard of something like that, right? Someone's just being so done with the situation. It's a complete, utter denial of it.
That night, I would have thought I think if he thought he could convince me to leave with him that night, I bet you he would have. But he knew I was not going anywhere. I'm like, I'm tired. Nuts to this.
Did he ask you to leave that night?
No, but I just know if he thought like we're good friends, right? So
right.
You kind of know how he thinks. Like if he thought he could convince me to leave, he would have tried.
Gotcha. It's like worth a shot. Hey, Kev, well, you feel like a little night hike, buddy? Like back out the way we came?
That sounds like getting stuck. Like that sounds like getting stalked by mountain lions. No, thank you,
dude. Yeah, no, that's a big no-go. Well, Kevin, what about? I mean, since now you have been kind of looking more into Bigfoot in the years since, have you seen any reports or straight up sightings or any activity that mimics the stuff that you guys experienced on that specific trail in that specific area?
No, I don't see a lot of BC Bigfoot stuff. In Canada, you don't see a lot of it in the news. It's like some of the, whereas I see in the States sometimes where they seem to cover a little bit more paranormal news, like UFO sightings or weird ghost videos and stuff. Here, I don't see it so much. Like, I do know there is some Bigfoot groups, but in the particular area I was, no, I haven't seen anything. I have seen heard some stories about the rock throwing and similar stuff like to what we saw. It seems to come with what I saw, but no, nothing in that area. Mind you, I haven't directly crazily researched it, as weird as that sounds. I was more always just trying to think about trying to look for the broader scale of things to like draw to it. I never thought about directly looking for sightings in that area.
Well, what about what you think Bigfoot is?
I'm on the Giganto thing. I don't think it's interdimensional. Like to me, it's an ape or an early ancestor of us that has got to be something smart enough to know to stay the hell away from us.
I mean, do you still go out? Are you outdoors a lot there?
Oh, absolutely. I don't live in BC. I live in Ontario, Canada now, which is, plumb across the other side. But I'm in the woods all the time. I am either fishing or hiking or just up on the trails or trying to do something every day. Like, just because you have an experience in the woods that was scary doesn't mean you should not go in the woods.
But that was scary to you, right? I mean, you didn't go as far as Dave to just deny it, but it was a scary experience.
Oh, yeah, I was scared shitless. I've just got a weird sense of humor where I just think everything is funny. Like, I didn't die, therefore it's funny.
That's a good attitude. I like that.
Like,
So,
you can't dwell on these things. Like, it happened, and like, I consider myself, as much as I was scared, lucky in my own way. I experienced something that a lot of people want to, and it's just lucky. If you listen to the Aboriginals, the native people say sometimes it's a good thing in your life. It's like, he's coming to see you, or like it means something. Like, I don't know directly what it says, but I consider myself fortunate.
well, and this is a stretch, and I'm not trying to assume anything or tie Bigfoot to anything else, like you said, with interdimensional or anything. But occasionally, you hear someone that has a Bigfoot encounter of any kind, a visual, auditory, any of this stuff, and then other things start to happen to them. They may see UFOs, or they may have ghost experience or ghostly experiences or paranormal experiences in their own home. Was there anything like that for you?
No, nothing like that at all. Mind you, I was homeless, so it would have been harder for me to notice. And I think that my honest opinion with these experiences, like, it's the Occam's razor. You just become more aware of the things around. The simplest solution is most probably correct. You're seeing the ghostly things because now you're looking for it. You're
Right.
seeing the weird lights in the sky because something weird happened to you. So you become more aware of what's around you.
But you would want to see a Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, I wish I had seen one. I wish I had so I could be like, because there's still always that doubt in your mind, like, what did I see? I'm pretty sure this is what I saw, but if I had that visual where it's like, hey, I watched something walking on 2 feet that was like 10 feet tall, there's no denying it.
But what about the more terrifying encounters that you've heard on any of the shows, including mine? The really bad ones where they don't go back in the woods for 10 or 20 years or ever.
I get it. I totally get it. People get scared, and if you're had a legitimately terrifying experience, some people's way of dealing with it is to just not put themselves in that situation where that can happen again.
But would you be willing to have the confirmation, but have that terrifying experience that you really considered not going back in the woods again? No more fishing, no more hiking, nothing.
No, I don't think so. Unless I had like a deadly sort of encounter, or like where I was attacked, maybe that would deter me, but not that. No, I wouldn't. I don't second guess it. I think when we were trying to set this up, I sent you a picture of me in the woods under a train bridge with a fish. Like, I wouldn't hesitate to go back in the woods.
Especially where you live. I mean, there's so much to do outdoors where you are, right? I mean, that is just part of probably most of people that live up there. They're every day.
Yeah, exactly. You don't live in like a small town if you don't want to go four-wheeling or fishing or golfing, or like you help your neighbors paint a fence you might not want to paint it. You don't do those things. I lived in cities most of my life. Like, I did grow up in small towns as a kid, but like as my adult traveling stuff, I was always in cities and lived in them. But I appreciate the outdoorsy things, so I came back small. Plus, rent is crazy everywhere now, so small towns are a little bit easier to rent.
Right. No, super cool encounter. It doesn't always have to be a visual experience for it to be really cool. I mean, the second you're telling me these massive, well, of all sizes, I should say, but quite large rocks are coming in every 5 to 10 minutes, and you're trying to figure out, surely that's coming off a hill or something. And you're like, nope, that's pretty cool. That is actually really very cool. I just feel bad that Dave is so bothered by it that he denies the entire thing, right? So maybe he'll come around one of these days. You never know.
Yeah, oh yeah. Time. It's his prerogative. He's got to do what he feels is right for him. Like, I don't hold it against him. We're still friends to this day. I hope he'll talk to me about it one day, but I didn't message him that I was doing this, so maybe I'll get a weird one. A weird one back. I did this honestly because I want other people who had a situation like me, like, 15, 20 years ago or whatever, hey, tell your story. Like, if you believe like me, it's a real thing, it benefits the science to put it on more of a mainstream level where you can get actual scientists out there looking for specimens and being like, hey, this is a real thing. And then we can protect it as the endangered animal it probably clearly is.
Yeah, we were having a chat about that when I was filming in West Virginia. We were talking about the numbers, and, you know, some people have these wild numbers of, you know, 500,000 and all this. Like, I just don't, there's no way. It cannot be. So, I agree that they probably need a little bit of help like on some level, they need some help.
Even if it's just their habitat preserved, like, hey, you can't log this or something, make it some sort of nature preserve to protect them. This is like, in some ways, every continent has stories of these ape creatures or whatever you want to call them. Like, are people for thousands of years lying and not seeing things? Same with UFOs or ghosts. I don't necessarily know what they are, but people forever have been seeing them. Like, why are we denying that people are actually seeing these things and researching it like it's a real thing? It may not be what we think it is, but it's clearly happening.
Well, and just to reiterate what you've already pretty much said, just because you didn't see it, the data points for your encounter are still very important to take down. And that's why, you know, again, thank you for doing this. And one last question, though. Does Dave go Does Dave go in the woods at all? Does he go hiking and fishing and all this other stuff?
As far as I know, he still does, but I assume he won't go alone.
Or too far in the woods.
Yeah, I you know, it's never come up. Does he still go in the woods? But don't doubt it. Like, he's a tough guy. Just, you know, he's had a weird experience. I don't know if he'd go on that trail again.
Right. Right, and the funny thing is, if you go on that trail now, today, I mean, the chances are probably almost zero that you'd have anything close to what you had happen, right? Because we're assuming they move around quite a bit, but wrong place, wrong time for him, and right place, right time for you.
I'd say a little bit of column A and column B there.
Yeah. Because sometimes there is no gray area. I've definitely found that in talking to people that have had these experiences, whether they saw it or not. You know, it's all how your brain decides to process it. And Dave's like, we're getting the F out of here right now. We are not going to pick apples. We are not going to see the hot springs or the waterfall. Let's go.
Well, no, correct. The apples was our job. That was down in the orchards. Like, we were an apple pick and we were done.
Oh, the apples were done. I'm sorry. That's right. You guys were just going to kind of chill at the end of the road with the hot springs.
Yeah. And get day drunk.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Day drunk and camping and terrified by Bigfoot. Things thrown at you. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was super fun, Shannon.
Thanks, Kevin. You enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate you doing this big time, man. Thank you.
No worries.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little firecracker. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. And then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the cohorts to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. don't believe literally in reincarnation, that after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.